無常人人未妙法百千万語難遭遇我今見聞徳十字願下如来真実義無常人人未妙法百千万語難遭遇我今見聞徳十字願下如来真実義無常人人未妙法百千万語難遭遇我今見聞徳十字願下如来真実義 So now I want to say a few words on aigo, as it is in Japanese. It's the second aspect of the four ways of a bodhisattva to care about all living beings. The chapter in Japanese is Bodaisatta-Shishoho. Bodhisatta means bodhisattva. Shi is four. Shoho means Sho means can mean to embrace something, to get into contact with something, to incorporate something. And it means in this case to embrace all living beings, to get into contact with all living beings, to become part of all living beings and to allow all living beings to share your life. And ho means a way, a method. So four methods of bodhisattvas to get into contact with living beings, to embrace living beings, to tear down the wall between themselves and all living beings, to allow all things to share their life and to share the life of all living beings. The first one I talked about a number of times until the summer was giving, dana. And not only giving material things, but giving your body and mind, sharing your life. And today I'm talking about the second, which is aigo. Ai means love, and go means words. So words of love, loving words, or Nishijima translates it as kind speech, which is also a correct translation, although the word kind doesn't carry the same message, or it has maybe a little bit less impact than saying love. Of course, love is a very problematic word, maybe also because it's used so often in Christianity. You have to love your neighbor, you have to love your enemy. Love exists between teenagers, romantic love, and also older people, of course, between parents and their children. Actually, the metaphor of a mother that loves her baby is used later in this text. But also, I think one of these, how do you say, commercials of McDonald's is, I'm loving it, I'm loving it. Love is all you need, the Beatles song. And probably often we ask ourselves, is love really all we need? And what do we really mean when we say love? Sometimes when I say I love you, what I really mean is I want to be loved by you, or I want to possess you. Can also be a meaning of I'm loving it. I want to eat that hamburger. I'm loving it. I want it now. Fast. Give me my hamburger and my Coke and my French fries. I'm loving it. So love is a problematic word, and maybe that's why Nishijima is avoiding it here. And maybe that's also why this word ai in Japanese, this character, is rarely found in Buddhist texts. Um, Rarely found. What you often find are the characters ji or he. Jihi means compassion. Both ji and he are two aspects. One is metta and the other is karuna. And they play a role since the old times in Buddhism. What's the difference between metta and karuna? Sometimes it's explained as kind of the fatherly love, the kind of, well, love or compassion that tries to, how do you say, cheer somebody up and say, hey, we can do it. Let's do it together. We can do it. You can do it. You have the power to do it. While the other is more like somebody is injured, somebody is suffering, rather than say, hey, get up, you can do it, which is also one aspect of compassion. You just sit down with them, tell me about your suffering. You share the suffering, which could be, of course, it's a little bit problematic to say this is fatherly, this is motherly, this is yang, this is yin. But the other one, the one would be kind of more the kind of, you can do it, get up. And the other is more, I understand your suffering. So these are two aspects of compassion, ji and he, and we hear about them quite often. Avalokiteshvara is basically embodying this compassion. And compared to that, you rarely hear about love. In Christianity, you always hear about love. In Buddhism, when you hear about love, it's usually not love, but kind speech, or it's compassion. And here is one of the few cases where the word love, I, the character for love, I, is used. The few times that I know about when this character is used in Buddhist scriptures, usually it's used in a negative sense, like I want my hamburger, like in the meaning of craving. Katsuai in Japanese means this craving, thirst. I want, I want, I want. I need more. The hungry ghost that's always missing something. To express this craving, they use the word ai, or another expression in Japanese would be aijaku, attachment. Attachment. You don't want to let something go. I love you, I love you, I love you. I won't let you go. Which is also kind of a problematic aspect of love. When you say, I love you, sometimes you mean, I won't let you go. Even if you want to leave me, I won't let you go because I love you so much. So in this sense, this text is a little special, or it's one of the few texts in Buddhism that I know about where the word love is used expressly in a positive sense. So I find it a little bit, how do you say, sad that Nishijima, how do you say, doesn't use the chance to also use it here, but he says kind speech, which is, or kind speech. But that kind of sounds like right speech in the Eightfold Path. To me, to my words, to my ears, it sounds a little bit very passive, too passive. He avoids, probably he wants to avoid all the problems that are attached to the word love. But the word Dogen Zenji is using here is love. And of course, Dogen Zenji is also aware that it can be a problematic word. But whatever. Let me read from the Nishijima translation. Kind speech means, when meeting living beings, first of all, to feel compassion for them and to offer caring and loving words. One difference between Buddhism and Christianity is, in Christianity, you start with the love for God who created you and sent his son to this world, and his son, Jesus, died on the cross for your sins. How can you not love your God? And then, once you realize how much God loved you and you love him back, you also must love your neighbor, who's in a way, we are all brothers and sisters. So it's the love towards God, the love towards your neighbor. But in Christianity, you rarely, if at all, hear for love for, I don't know, pigs or cows or insects. And in Buddhism, when we talk about all living beings, all sentient beings, all beings that are capable of suffering are included. So that means in theory, we must also feel love, compassion for the shika, the deer, and the inoshishi, the wild boar out there in the mountains, and the insects that bite us in the summer and that eat the vegetables. And of course, if you try to be self-sufficient and you to protect yourselves and the vegetable fields from exactly these living beings, it's hard to practice compassion each single day. Or it can't mean that we say, hey, please, everybody, if you want to eat the rice, you can share. We have enough. But you have to protect the rice. And as you know, in Antaiji, also the meat of the deer and the wild boar sometimes appears on the table because there's so many that the hunters have to catch them and they bring them to Antaiji. But of course, we try to also understand that these beings also suffer. They don't want to suffer, they want to live. And we try to do our best to reduce the suffering in the world as good as we can. But there are limits to this. And before we start with practicing compassion towards the insects, of course, that's also part of it. But it's difficult enough to practice this kind of compassion or love towards the people with whom you share, for example, the space of Antaiji. Everybody that came to Antaiji came with probably the same intention. I want to practice the way. I want to take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And now there's maybe almost a dozen of people that came with this intention. And the great surprise is how difficult it is to live in peace, in harmony with these people that came with the same intention like myself, to take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, to let go of myself. Even in that context, it can be sometimes very difficult to practice speaking words of love, aigo, or kind speech, as Nishijima says here. But of course, the limits are not only the human beings around you, but all sentient beings should be, at the end of the day, included in this thought. I want to help all. I want to help them all. Broadly, it is there being no rude or bad words. That sounds like, well, it sounds trivial. In a way, it is trivial. To speak words of love means that you don't speak rude words or rough words. Of course, sometimes it might be necessary to say something in a very direct way. Sawaki Roshi is famous for saying things in a very direct way. And of course, also this directness is an expression of compassion. And when I was young, I was drawn very much to this direct approach of Sawaki Roshi. Maybe it's because I got older, but now getting older, I'm beginning to also appreciate the soft approach of the words of Uchiyama Roshi. That didn't attract me so much when I was young. When I was young, I thought that Sawaki Roshi is so much more charismatic. He has this power. What happened to the Dharma in Antaiji when Uchiyama Roshi became the abbot? But now I see that he, in his way, expresses also aigo, or maybe even in a much more pure bodhisattva form. Not that Sawaki Roshi wouldn't be a bodhisattva in his own right, but Also, Dogen Zenji in the Zuimonki says, sometimes when you feel that you have to give somebody an advice, you have to point out their mistakes, rather than saying it directly to their face. Hey, you're doing this wrong. You're always making the same mistake. It's often a much more useful thing to say, when we don't take care, it can happen that this and this happens. So rather than pointing out, you're always making this mistake, you're saying, this is something that can happen, isn't it? It happened to me. From my own experience, I know that sometimes we do mistakes like this. And the idea behind this is that the person who's listening realizes, oh, that's happening to me. I'm doing that. Actually, he didn't mention my name. He didn't say that I'm doing this mistake, but that's my mistake. He's talking about me. That's the hope. And when this happens, when the person is realizing, wow, even without telling me directly, without pointing out directly my mistake, he was giving me a very valuable teaching here. And it has much more impact than saying something, hey, you're doing this wrong. I want you to never do this mistake again. Then usually you meet resistance. Unfortunately, not all of us have these ears to listen. For example, in the sutras, there's this metaphor of 4 horses, and also one chapter in the Shōbō Genzo. In Japanese, it's called Shime, which means horse number 4, the 4th horse. The first horse basically moves even before you raise the whip. Or I think the metaphor is when the horse sees the shadow of the whip. And the whip is basically, well, the words of the teacher, the words of the Buddha. You don't even have to listen to hear the words. You only see the shadow of the whip and you're already moving. You do what you need to do. You run. The second horse needs to feel the whip on its skin. Basically, you hear the words. You hear the words and only then you move. The third horse needs to bleed. Only when it starts to bleed. So if you're that kind of horse, you need a certain directness. You need to be told, this is about you and only about you. I'm talking to you here. That's when the third horse moves. And the fourth horse is the one that the whip has to penetrate the flesh until it reaches the bone. The bone. But of course, when we talk to others, there's always the hope that we are not talking to a fourth horse. And of course, always before you tell somebody else, you're your horse number 4, ask yourself, maybe I'm horse number 4 myself. Maybe I can do something about my own mistakes before I talk and worry about the mistakes of the others. So no rude or bad words is one meaning of aigo, kind speech, words of love. In secular societies, there are polite customs of asking others if they are well. In Buddhism, there are the words, take good care of yourself. And there's the disciples' greeting, how are you? So in Japanese, that would be ogenki desu ka? Or even more polite, ikaga o sugoshi desho ka, o kawari arimasen ka, are Japanese phrases that mean exactly that. How are you? How are you doing? Or this in Japanese here, what Nishijima translates as take good care of yourself is chincho, which you shout during the Hossen Shiki, the Dharma combat. There's kind of question and answer and it goes back and forth. And then finally, when the answer is given, when the discussion is settled, there's this Chincho Banzei, take good care of yourself. Chincho Banzei means 10,000 years. So May the Dharma flourish for 10,000 years. May your practice flourish for 10,000 years. So Aigo, one example of Aigo, words of love, is just asking the others, how are you doing? How are you doing today? That already is Aigo. Or good morning. Or what often you hear in Japan, also in Antai, is Otsukare sama deshita or Gokuro sama deshita. You had a hard day. Thank you for working so hard. Those are all also expressions of Aigo. Otsukare sama, Gokuro sama. Speaking with the feeling of compassion for living beings as if they were babies is kind speech. And that's a quote from the Lotus Sutra. Having compassion for living beings as if they were babies. The love of a mother for their baby. And that's what Dogen Zenji talks about when he's talking at the end of the Tenzo Kyokun. The book for the cook, instructions for the cook. At the end, he's talking about the three minds. Joyful mind, and then Roshin, old mind or parental mind. That's the one that's meant here. And then big mind, magnanimous mind. Having old mind or parental mind is exactly this. Thinking about the other person as if he was your baby. This, of course, doesn't mean that you think about, well, he can't do anything by himself. I have to wipe his ass. But rather you think, well, how can I help him to grow without hurting him? I don't want to hurt my baby, but I want it to grow. What can I do to help my baby grow? We should praise those who have virtue and should pity those who lack virtue. Praising those who have virtue or who do a good job, who are good at Samu, who are good at the Tenzo, and who sit with a perfect posture during Zazen is easy. Wow, wow, I admire you. You're doing this great. Thank you for your work. But most of the time, we're confronted with people who are doing it not the way we expect it to do. They could do better as Tenzo. They could do better when it's time to do Samu. And during Zazen, they're moving or they're sleeping or they're late. How about those? And Dogen Zenji says, well, you should pity those. What does it mean to pity them? Oh, poor guy. Poor guy. Thank God that I'm not as him. That's not pity. Pity, in my view, means that you remind yourself, oh, that could be me. That could be me. Maybe 3 years ago, 5 years ago, I was just like this guy, that person, or maybe even now, even without myself realizing, I carry that in myself. We are sitting in the same boat here. And even in those cases where you're pretty sure that I never messed up so much as this person is messing up every day. I wasn't a perfect Tenzo, but I never messed up so much in the kitchen like this guy. I slept a number of times during Zazen, but this guy, he's sleeping all of the time. Even in that case, you tell yourself, maybe I was just lucky. Maybe I was just lucky that I was born in this way, that I don't make as many mistakes as another person. But that person who's making always mistakes and he has a bad character and whatever, he just wasn't so lucky. He didn't choose to be that person. He didn't choose to become that person. He was just not as fortunate as myself. So how can I help this person? And maybe when I see this person, I don't see myself 3 years ago, 5 years ago, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I didn't make so much mistakes. Maybe I'm seeing myself in a former reincarnation. Maybe a lot of you don't believe in reincarnation. To be honest, I don't really believe in reincarnation, but sometimes it can be a helpful tool to imagine. It could be true And when you see this guy who's doing everything wrong, maybe you see yourself 3 lives before this life, maybe 3 lives ago. You were also that person. You were like that person. And at that time, people helped you. People helped you to become the person that you are now. And hopefully, in 3 lives from now, you might even look back on your present self and laugh about it. Wow, wow, how did I mess up when I was Muho in the 21st century? Thank God, thank Buddha that I could grow over that. But yeah, all these guys that you're facing in the present life and that are so stupid because they voted for Trump or they voted for Kamala Harris or whatever they did wrong. Who knows? Who knows who you were 3 lives ago? Who knows? So I think that has something to do with pity. That could be me. Probably that is me. Maybe that's myself 3 lives ago, or maybe that's me, myself now. It's just that I don't look in the mirror honestly enough. Maybe that's exactly the way I look from their perspective. From my perspective, they are just stupid people. And the world would be better without them. But who knows? Maybe from their perspective, I'm the one who's stupid and the world would be better without me. And maybe they're even right. Maybe they're both right. I think that's something that has to do with pity. Understanding that when you criticize the other, when you see their mistakes, you're seeing your own mistakes. Through love of kind speech is gradually nurtured. Thus, kind speech, which is ordinarily neither recognized nor experienced, manifests itself before us. So even though you might, how do you say, decide from today on, I will only say nice words. I want to behave like Mother Teresa or the Pope or Dalai Lama. I'm not gonna hurt anybody anymore. It's not gonna happen overnight. Just like you can't decide, I'm gonna plant tomatoes and cucumbers and pumpkins, and you plant the seeds and the next day you have your tomatoes and cucumbers and pumpkins. It takes weeks, months. In the case of kind speech, it can take years. Maybe it takes 1 or 2 or 3 reincarnations until these plants grow. But if you care for them, just like with the vegetables, you not only plant the seeds, but you care for them, you water them, you protect them. You make sure that they have enough fertilizer, which means in Antaji, you take the stuff from the toilet and fertilize them with that. Only then they grow. They don't grow overnight. But if you take care in this way that you ask yourself, maybe there's a different way to communicate this. So rather than always telling the other person you're doing it wrong, maybe there's a different way to communicate this. And maybe I'm doing things also wrong. Maybe I'm just pointing out my own mistakes and always pointing the fingers at the other, but maybe it's about me. Maybe I'm the person who's at fault. Thus, gradually, these words that today don't come out of your mouth, one day you realize. And this can also come through reading, for example, Shobo Genzo chapters like this, or reading the books by Nishijima Roshi and other people that express exactly these words. Maybe in the beginning they even annoy you. Oh, this permanent kind speech. Leave me alone with your kind speech. But one day you're surprised, how come that even through this, my mouth, my mouth that was so attracted to the harsh speech of Sawaki Roshi, even I start to say these words. So that's when the tomatoes and cucumbers and pumpkins of kind speech are growing. But for them to grow, you need to tend to them, care for them as if they were your babies. While the present body and life exist, we should enjoy kind speech, and we will not regress or deviate through many ages and many lives. So decide to care for these plants of kind speech or words of love during this whole life until the end of your life. And if you should be reborn in the next life again and again and again. Whether in defeating adversaries or in promoting harmony among gentle folk, kind speech is fundamental. So even in Antaiji, I think there's conflict with your rivals. As I said in the beginning, we all came to Antaiji with the same intention, taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. But then you ask yourself, why do I have to share this room with this guy? He's snoring, he's an asshole, he's annoying me. This person is annoying me. If only this person wouldn't be here in Antaiji. If he would leave, my life in Antaiji would be so much easier, so much better. Probably a lot of you know these thoughts. What can you do against your adversaries? What can you do against the people that annoy you, against the people that vote for Trump or Kamala Harris or whomever that you despise? What can you do against them? Tell them that they are assholes, tell them that they're stupid. Or maybe ask them, well, how do you feel about the world? And to be honest, there's lots of things about what you say and do that I view critically, but maybe let me know your view. What's your view? What do you think that I'm seeing wrong, that I'm doing wrong? Those are also kind words. And only thus is communication possible. Communication doesn't work that you tell all the people that you think are wrong, tell them you are wrong. I don't even want to talk to you, to be honest. But at least that's what I have to tell you. I don't talk to people like you. Fuck off. Fuck off. And what do they tell you? How do they react? Well, obviously they tell you, you fuck off. You can fuck yourself. You're the asshole here. In Germany, it's becoming pretty popular to call each other Nazi. The people on the left call the people on the right Nazi, and the people on the right say, today it's the people on the left that are the Nazis. You want to tell us what we can say or what we cannot say. You are the Nazis. You are the true Nazis. You are the new Nazis. Does this really help to solve the problem, to call each other Nazis? I think I'm not the only one. I hope I'm not the only one who has the impression that it doesn't really help so much. Of course, we all have to keep our eyes open and make sure that not the same thing happened that happened in Germany almost 100 years ago, 1933, to make sure we don't proceed the same way. But just saying, you are the Nazi, you are Nazi, you are the new Hitler, probably doesn't help to solve the problems. But rather, well, tell me your point of view. Let us talk about this. Words of love. Words of love. Or, as I said, even simple things like, good morning, how are you doing today? Otsukare-sama, thank you for working so hard. Ne? It was hot today, it was cold today. Samui ne, atsui ne, as the Japanese often say. And there's really not much information in those words, but they help to keep things smooth. You go to Kutuyama, you go to Hamasaka, the first thing you hear is "Samuku natta ne." It's gotten cold. And those are also words of love. And they help to create harmony. To hear kind speech spoken to us directly makes the face happy and the mind joyful. If the person with whom you had a fight yesterday tells you, "Good morning, how are you doing today? Sorry for what I said yesterday. I was wrong." In that moment, all the anger that you carried in your heart for that person flies away. You can't even smile, you can't help but smile and say, "No, no, it was me. It was my fault as well. We were both wrong." And that's the power of kind words. And of course, you shouldn't wait for the other person to make the first step and say that. Sometimes, almost all of the time, the best thing is that you are the one who says, "Sorry. Sorry for what I did yesterday. Let's try to do it better today." That's the power of kind words that are spoken directly to your face. It makes the face happy and the mind joyful. To hear kind speech indirectly etches an impression in the heart and in the soul. So when you read books by Dogen Zenji or Nishijima Roshi or all the others, and they contain kind speech, and sometimes maybe in the beginning it annoys you, and you're rather drawn to the rough and direct words of Sawaki Roshi. Over time, these seeds sprout, and especially when you don't read those as words that Dogen Zenji wrote for somebody. Nishijima Roshi wrote those books for somebody, who knows whom. But rather, you open the book, you read it as if it was written for you and only for you. Then it makes an impression on your heart. How could Nishijima Roshi be so kind to say and write these things to me? Dogen Zenji must have been very busy 800 years ago in Eheji, and still he found the time to write this chapter for me. He's talking about me here. And if you read these words, then maybe not from tomorrow, but over time, it will also change your attitude and your way of communicating and reacting to others. Remember, kind speech arises from a loving mind, and the seed of a loving mind is compassion. So as I said in the beginning, usually the word love in Buddhism is used more in a negative sense, but here it's used in a positive sense. And Dogen Zenji says that basically love and compassion, they have the same root. We are not talking about different things here, but loving speech or kind speech arises from a loving mind. So for some reason here, Nishijima chooses the word love or loving, although he seems to avoid it when he talks about speech. He could have said loving speech as well. It's the same character, kind and love. He's translating the same character here the first time as kind, the second time as loving, no? But actually is loving speech, loving mind. Loving speech stems from loving mind, and loving mind is rooted in compassion, the seed that sprouts out of compassionate mind. We should learn that kind speech has the power to turn around the heavens. It can turn a war into peace. It can turn a fight into harmony. Two persons that fought until yesterday get along with each other again. And how does this happen? It can happen because of kind speech. It probably will not happen without kind speech. It is not merely the praise of ability. To praise others who are good for their ability is easy. but that's not what is meant here by kind speech. And sometimes, a lot of times in Antaiji, probably every day, you also have to somehow, how do you say, apply a certain amount of criticism. So it doesn't only mean that you talk about the good things others do, how good they are. I really admire how good you are when you are the Tenzo. But you also have to point out what can be done better. But how do you do that? How do you do it? And never forget the mistakes that you do and maybe work on those before you point out the mistakes of the others. Okay, so much from my side in English. Here the part on kind speech or words of love ends. And as always, now would be the time to ask questions. ここで質疑応答を始めたいと思います。皆さんいかがでしょうか、お聞きしたいこと、シェアしたいことがあれば何でも遠慮なく聞いてもらえばと思います。いかがでしょうか。ありませんか。ここで空気を読んで質問の一つをするのも愛語の表現ですから。つまらなそうに下を向いてなんか早く終わらないかな早く終わらないかなっていうのは愛語じゃないんで。
そうなんですね。
Yeah, it's not a question. I just wanted to wholeheartedly express my appreciation for the Dharma talk so far, and especially as well for the one today. And yeah, so just arigatou gozaimashita.
Thank you, thank you. That's a great example of kind speech. Yeah, you don't have to ask any difficult questions. Of course, you're welcome to ask difficult questions as well, but yeah, thank you is a very simple example of a very powerful aigo. It's a very powerful example of kind speech. Thank you, thank you. Or sometimes saying sorry or excuse me. Those are very simple examples, but even those simple examples often we forget.
It's really, I'm very excited actually every time I see that you're about to have a wrinkle, and because every time it moves me, and yeah.
What do you say? So, every time you have a break off?
It moves me. I don't know which part you didn't understand now, but yeah, so every time I'm very excited for your wrinkle, or I'm looking forward to it. That's what
okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for listening, because if you wouldn't be listening, I wouldn't have an opportunity to talk. So thank you for listening, and thank you for Docho-san to invite me, because actually it would be Docho-san's job to give these talks, but I'm very grateful to her that she gives me the opportunity, although I'm sitting here on my sofa in Osaka, to every month connect to you and give these talks. So thank you from my side as well to all of you and Docho-san. Any other questions? 他にご質問ありませんでしょうか？次回さん。Hello.
So that's, is it all right? Yeah. So at the beginning, it says, first feel compassion, and then you act with the kind words. So how do you feel compassion? What is compassion?
Compassion. Well, during my talk, I tried to explain it, or to get to this, that actually this person that I despise so much, that I can't really understand how can you be so stupid or so evil, maybe even. How could this person be such a annoying person that you maybe ask yourself, well, maybe I was a little bit like this in the past. When I look back at what I did to people, what I said to people in the past, and even if then you say, no, 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 I was never like this kind of idea. I'm not quite sure if I existed before I was born as this person in 1968, but let's assume that this idea of reincarnation is true. Maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, I was exactly this person. And I think that kind of reflection can help to grow the seed of compassion. Of course, another way, and unfortunately we can't really influence this, but another way that helps the seed of compassion to grow is to get into contact with people that have compassion with us, to realize, oh, this person did a lot of things for me. They are doing a lot of things for me, and I wasn't even grateful until now. To surround yourself with compassionate persons is also a very powerful and easy way to become maybe a more compassionate person yourself. But as you probably know, it's not so easy to find these people that are always compassionate to ourselves. And when we finally find such a person, it can be also kind of annoying. Please leave me alone with your compassion. I don't need so much compassion. Please leave me alone. But yeah, basically what I just said, how can you become more compassionate by realizing this person that I'm so annoyed with? Actually, that's me. I'm looking in a mirror here. And that's something that people talk about a lot these days, is self-empathy, having compassion with yourself. And I even sometimes have the impression that people talk too much about it. And when they talk about it, it sounds sometimes like an excuse. Like people want to say, I don't care about the rest of the world, I need to take care of myself. Everybody else is harvesting the rice, but I need to practice self-empathy today. I will stay in bed. That's not what I mean, but kind of you realize that you're seeing in the mirror when you see the other person. But then if you don't have self-empathy, I don't want to suffer. I want to get out of my suffering. And you see that this person that you're annoyed with is also suffering. Without self-empathy, you can't have empathy or compassion with that person. So self-empathy is also important, but it doesn't mean that you always say, hey, I don't care about the rest of the world. I take care of my, how do you say, needs first. But it means that just as I want to be happy, I want to be free from suffering, so you must be also trying to get out of your suffering. And that helps you to become more compassionate also with the others. But again, if you hate yourself, and I think all of us, or at least most of us, also carry this self-hate somewhere. This hate for others is also just a reflection or projection of the self-hate. So as long as self-hate is what drives your life, it's very hard to feel compassion. So to overcome this self-hate and to realize at the end of the day, I don't want to hate myself. I don't want to hate myself. I want to be in peace with myself, in harmony with myself. I want to love myself. When you have that and you feel this connection, actually the others are not so different than myself. Even the Trump voters, even the woke guys, whoever, at the end of the day, they're not so different from myself. Then having compassion with yourself also helps you to have compassion with those. But again, the fact that you asked this question, and I understand that somebody after 30 years of practice or maybe even more would ask these questions. How is it possible? How is it really possible to become a more compassionate person? The fact that you asked the question, and I totally understand the question because I'm asking myself this question again and again in my daily life, proves, as Dogen Zenji says, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a seed that will grow when you care for it, but it grows very slowly. It grows so slowly when you say, I'm pretty sure that this life is my last life, there won't be any rebirth. It's hard to, how do you say, become desperate because it's growing so slowly that sometimes we have the feeling, well, maybe in 3 lives from now, in 3 lives from now, I'm gonna be a more decent person, and to become like Sawaki Roshi or Uchiyama Roshi, I need 1 million years or so. So sometimes it can be comforting to have the idea, oh, maybe I have a couple of lives. Again, back to your question, how can we become more compassionate persons? Well, it takes time. It takes time. And in my life, I realize it's taking a lot of time. I wish I would be a more compassionate person. I wish you experienced me when I was the dojo in Antaiji, and you know that I wasn't the smiling, always compassionate, happy Buddha that would embrace everybody and tend for each of my students as if they were my baby. You know that I wasn't this mother that was caring for you and everybody else as if they were my baby. So I wasn't the perfect Bodhisattva 20 years ago. I wasn't the perfect Bodhisattva 10 years ago. And unfortunately, I have to honestly say I'm not that Bodhisattva today. But I wish to grow just a little bit, day by day. And I hope to continue to grow this life, and maybe if there's a next life, I want to continue next life as well. How do we become more compassionate people? That's a very good question. And unfortunately, often we ask, how can the others become more compassionate towards me? How come that nobody has more compassion for me? I want to be the object, so to speak. I want to be treated in a more compassionate way. And that's, of course, also something that I understand. But the better question is the question that Jikai-san just asked. How can I become more compassionate? That's also the question that helps us to grow. It's like in the case of the cucumber, that would be the string, this question. How can I become more compassionate? That's the string that helps the cucumber to grow. And not overnight. It's not going to become 2 meters high overnight, but centimeter by centimeter, it's growing little by little using this question. How can I also be able to practice kind speech or loving words? Okay, there's another question here.
Hi. Yeah. Thank you very much. My question goes slightly in a different direction. I'm wondering, like, if we feel compassion towards others, we're putting some sort of hierarchy here, right? Like, I'm the good person, I can feel compassion towards someone else. And I wonder how we make sure that this is not turning into some sort of arrogance.
Exactly, like I said, that some of us are a little bit annoyed, maybe even by kind speech. And in the West, we all know that kind speech is important, and we all want to practice kind speech. We don't want to hurt others. And it can sometimes become almost a little bit annoying. What I just said a couple of minutes ago, leave me alone with your kind speech. Leave me alone with your compassion. And the reason for this is, I think, what you said, that we feel this hierarchy, that people are sitting on their high moral horse and they are so compassionate and they are so kind and they're so embracing and they are so diverse and they are so correct and everything. And there's nothing wrong about being exactly that, to being kind and diverse and correct and all of these things. But when it comes from above, like I am the correct one, I'm the kind person, I'm the embracing person, I'm embracing you, I'm having pity for you, then it becomes very annoying and also probably will produce a negative reaction. Fuck off. Leave me alone with your kindness. Leave me alone with your correctness. So the recording just broke off, but I was kind of in explaining that sometimes these correct, kind, embracing people can even annoy us more than a person like Sawaki that says the world would be better without you. So that's something we want to avoid. We want to be one of these super kind, but kind of in the hierarchy, they're looking down from us, from their horse, from the moral horse. We want to avoid that. How can we avoid it? Well, I try to get at that by saying when you are looking at somebody else, having pity doesn't mean that, oh, that poor guy, I need to do something for them. He's voting for Trump, but I need to explain that he should not vote for Trump because it's bad for our planet and for humanity. That's not the pity I talk about, but pity means that I'm looking at myself here. When I'm looking at a Trump voter, I'm looking at myself. When I'm looking at a woke person or a social justice warrior, I'm looking at myself. I'm looking at myself from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe 5 lives ago, 10 lives ago. I'm not the Bodhisattva who's doing something for a poor person here, but I'm doing something for myself. And I said, I'm looking at myself from 5 years ago, but maybe not only 5 years ago, maybe at 5 lives from now, I will still be that person. Not only am I looking at my past life, actually I'm looking at myself. We're looking at a mirror here. So to realize I'm not so different from the Trump voters, and I'm not so different from the social justice warriors and from the people down there in Kutoyama and whoever. I'm not different from them. Or of course I'm different from them, but my worries and my suffering and my delusion, basically it's rooted in the same soil. There's a difference between tomatoes and cucumbers and pumpkins, but basically they're growing from the same soil. And although I always say you should aim at becoming the cucumber and not the tomato and the pumpkins, sometimes you want to eat a tomato. You don't want to eat cucumbers every day. And in the winter, having pumpkins is also good. So at the end of the day, we're all vegetables growing from the same soil. That's what I mean with pity, not saying, hey, I'm the cucumber, you're only the tomato, and look at this pumpkin. Have pity for the pumpkin. That's not what I talk about. So avoiding this is really important, and that's exactly the reason why we are sometimes, well, annoyed by these compassionate, empathetic, embracing Bodhisattva Buddhists that you meet sometimes. And although they have the best intentions, sometimes having good intentions is just not enough, or it's too much. Having good intentions is too much. Pity means to see yourself in the other. That's also actually a phrase that's from the Tenzo Kyokun. The stupid person sees see themselves as if it was another person. But the wise person sees the other as himself. And that's what I'm talking here. You see another person, they annoy you, and then you understand, oh, that's actually me. I'm annoyed with myself. And to have compassion to that person, just as I said, to the question of Chikai-san, when you have compassion for yourself, then when you have the realization, I'm looking at myself, you can't help but have a little compassion for that person, for the other person. But it's not this top-down compassion. I'm the Bodhisattva, I'm compassionate because you're only a deluded being, because it's compassion that's a compassion towards yourself. Oh, I'm looking at myself. I don't want to suffer. How can I make that person suffer? I want to be free from suffering, so I want that person to be free from suffering as well, because only when we both are freed from suffering can we live in a more peaceful world. That's what I try to say. So it's certainly not this very embracing, I want to hug everybody and here, come to me, and this kind of watering the poor people, give them a little bit water, give them a little bit fertilizer so that they can help and become beautiful bodhisattvas like myself. That's not what I'm talking about here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to bring another word here in the mix that helped me in my kind of mental process of becoming more compassionate, maybe, and this is forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
At the first step. So I see my judgments, like my dark thoughts, or even my hate against persons and so on, and then yeah, there is like the first step is forgiveness. Of course, sometimes even that, I don't know, that doesn't work. So then I can just be with it, I guess. But well, as a first step, what are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, what you just said is also very important in Christianity. What's it called in English? The Lord's Prayer. Please forgive my sin, just as I forgive those that sinned against me. This forgiving others can be a turning point. And again, just like with the question before, forgiving others can sound like something, I forgive you. You did something bad, but I'm such a good person that I forgive you. That's not really forgiveness, but forgiveness means to just acknowledge what happened. That happened. I can't change it. You can't change it. It happened. I was hurt. But that's how it was. That's my life. I accept that. Thanks also to these wounds that maybe I carried with me. Thanks to this, I'm here today. Thanks to this, maybe I practiced Zen. Maybe I wouldn't have found this way without those things that happened to me. So I acknowledge that. And it's okay. It's okay. And from that, then the hope, maybe others can also forgive me. Maybe others can also forgive me. Or sometimes it's the other way around. First, you realize actually there's a lot of things that I need to ask for forgiveness. I did a lot of things to others, and I never actually really thought about it. I never said sorry. I never asked for forgiveness. But actually, I'm the one that needs to be forgiven. And the moment you realize it, makes it easier to forgive others. And if it happens this way, it's not this top down, I'm a good person, so I forgive you, but rather I'm the one who needs to say sorry. So who am I to not forgive others? And yes, of course, that can help you to become softer, more soft to yourself, and helps you to become more soft and kind to others. Forgiving others, or maybe as the first step, realizing that you're the one that needs to be forgiven. And only when you realize that, you have no other options than to forgive others as well.
And also as a starting point for self-compassion and self-love.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's what I sometimes say in German. I don't know if I said it in English so often, but shame and guilt are concepts that are central to Christianity. And a lot of people are a little bit, how do you say? They don't like this concept of shame, guilt, that we should feel bad for ourselves, that we should ask for forgiveness for things that we did or for who we are. Because why should we feel bad about ourselves? We should feel good about ourselves. And sometimes that's the reason why people choose Buddhism over Christianity, because Buddhism says you have Buddha nature. You are already a Buddha. We are already Buddhas. We are all good the way we are. And I sometimes have the feeling that there's a little bit of self-deception going on there. Maybe you want to think that. Maybe you want people to tell you that you're good the way you are. But is this really true? And of course, this kind of attachment to, oh, I'm such a guilty person, I'm such a bad person, only Jesus can save me, that can also be a trap. Of course, it can be a trap to always be told you're guilty, bad, bad, bad. But the healthy aspect of this shame can help you to forgive others, because sorry for what I did. I feel guilty. I'm ashamed. And kind of the worst thing that can happen to a person is being shameless. Shame on you, we sometimes say or feel when we see somebody who's shameless, who's lacking this, as I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. Everybody does that. Everybody would do something like that. I have nothing to regret. Why should I say sorry to anybody? I think that's the worst attitude that you can have, shamelessness. So, and as maybe you know, also in Buddhism, there's this ceremony of remorse. We show remorse. Traditionally in Buddhism, every 2 weeks, on new moon and on full moon days, people would do remorse ceremony and would reflect on all the precepts they broke, all the things that they did wrong, and all the times where they did not practice kind speech. So that's very important, to not forget that, yeah, I should be ashamed of myself. I did so many things wrong. And that helps you to ask for forgiveness, to forgive others, to practice self-empathy. So self-empathy in a way, or empathy, self-compassion can only happen when you have shame and guilt, in my view. It doesn't mean to say, I want to be compassionate to myself. I don't want to feel ashamed. I don't want to feel guilty. That's all Christianity. That's so Western. I rather want to be a Buddhist. I want to be feel good about myself. That's not self-empathy. That is self-deception in my mind. So nothing against a healthy portion of shame and guilt, I would say. Nothing against a healthy portion of shame and guilt. Of course, not too much. Don't be attached too much to your shame and guilt. But sometimes it can help to trigger this self-forgiveness and forgiveness towards others. Any other question? Hoka ni go shitsumon to arimasen deshou ka? Arimasen ka?
本語での質問ありませんか？
もう2時間近く喋ったので、あればぜひとも聞いてもらいたいんですし、なければそろそろ終わりにしてもいいんですか？いかがですか？
はい。あ
終わり
りがとうございます。
にしますか？はい、ありがとうございます。では最後には主情、シグセイガンドを皆さんと一緒に唱えさせていただこうと思います。主情無変誓願道煩悩無尽誓願断訪問無料誓願学仏道無常誓願上主情無変誓願道煩悩無尽誓願断訪問無料誓願学仏道無常誓願上主情無変誓願道煩悩無尽誓願断訪問無料誓願学仏道無常誓願上。ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。